welcome to the Dial Global Virtual Lounge. This is the show where we discuss the future of the modern workplace and the impact of diversity, inclusion and belonging with the world's most successful and innovative business leaders. Today, we are joined by Claire Timmins, HR Director at Ipsos MORI, Monika Gostomska, Diversity and Inclusion Manager at Verizon Media, Tracy Power, Social Inclusion Director at the Rugby League World Cup 2021, Claire Parker, MCIPD Senior Diversity and Inclusion Manager at Britvic, and Katherine Robinson, Senior Business Development Manager at Boots UK and Vice Chair at Women of Walgreen Boots Alliance UK Business Resource Group. Now, the last year, we have seen many organisations around the world subject to difficult and challenging times around furlough, redundancy, personal concern with regards to the COVID pandemic. And of course, this has naturally put the subject of mental health and wellness under the spotlight, inspired much true action from organisations and leaders to mitigate the fear that this will have lasting impact both personally and professionally. In this session, we're going to be asking our inspirational leaders what mental health and wellness truly means to them and their organisations. It's an opportunity for our leaders today to discuss their work in this space and what more needs to be done to make good mental health and wellness a primary objective. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of today's session, we're going to go through a little round robin so you can all get to know the wonderful individuals on the panel today, as well as I do. And Claire, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay.
Okay, yep, certainly. Hi, thank you, Layla. Hi, everybody. And it's nice to meet these ladies on the call today. My name's Claire Timmins. I'm the HR Director for Ipsos MORI across the UK and Ireland. I am locked in South East London. I have 2 young children, so they are fortunately at school, and long may that continue. I am responsible at work for HR for around 1,600 employees across the UK. We are all home working. There will be a few people that need to come into the office. And actually, even in lockdown 2, we've kept our offices open and kept our definition of need quite broad, because we are very conscious that we have a number of employees across the organisation that need to come into the office because of their mental health. So perhaps being at home is not safe, or actually it's not conducive to creating great work, and sometimes they need a break away from that environment. So that's an important part of our philosophy, through this pandemic. Our mental health focus during COVID has really been built on some of the work that we've been doing over the last few years on employee mental health and wellbeing. And actually, during COVID, I've had the opportunity to take it a step further and lead a global wellbeing and resilience strategy, which I'm very excited about. From a personal perspective, I'm pretty self-aware when it comes to my mental health. I've had phases of poor mental health, particularly in my 20s and 30s. So I understand the triggers and therefore what I need to do to manage my own mental health. That's helped me, I think about how I can help my employees at Ipsos MORI. Lockdown is hard. Self-isolation actually is really tricky. We had to do that as a family early September. And that can be difficult when that control is taken away from you. And these are some of the kind of things that we're trying to impart on our employees: the importance of good routine, taking breaks away from their screen, regular exercise, and we do all that we can to encourage people to take control and do that themselves. I hope that's enough and not too long for you, Layla.
Claire, that's perfect, and we'll dive deep into some more of those subjects as we go on. Monika.
Thank you, Layla, and thank you so much, Claire, for a fantastic introduction. My name is Monika, and I'm a Diversity and Inclusion Manager in Verizon Media. I also lead our employee resource groups globally for Verizon Media and in collaboration with Verizon. And I'm absolutely, first of all, delighted to be here with you all, to meet you all. And Leila, thank you so much for this invitation. I feel honored and privileged to be talking about such an important topic as mental health. And I have been with Verizon Media for about 3 years. I'm also a mother. I have an 11-year-old daughter that's quite aware, and you know, it is taking an impact on her. It's taking an impact on all of us as a family. Hence, mental health and making sure that we support each other is key in our family, and also in our organization. And mental health is not something that you can always control. So to me, it's having that awareness and be able to ask for help and share is key for people in their personal lives and in their communities and in their organizations. And Verizon Media, I think, has done a tremendous job to support their employees, building out programs. They are often country dependent, but also there's an international and global strategy that helps people to make sure that they have access to resources, that things are available to them on a daily basis, and there's places and people that they can ask for help. I'm sure we will talk a little bit more about what each company is doing at the moment, but for us, it's really leveraging our benefits providers for resources that employees can refer to on our intranet, on the street. It's really using the employee assistance programs, webinars, making sure that there's contact numbers for people to reach out to on a daily basis. There's wonderful, wonderful initiatives that have been introduced for employees to tune into gym sessions, virtual yoga, Pilates, strength, cardio, you name it. We have access to all of that. But we do also realize as an organization that there's a lot of online activity going on, and we need to also allow people and encourage them to take time off screen, go for a walk, go running, and take time to really spend with your family, switch off, and we being highly encouraged to do that by our leadership. And I think that's key, where that message and that kind of, you know, lead by example behavior comes from the top, from our leaders, from our managers. So yeah, absolutely. Again, delighted to be here. Leila, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'll pass it on to Tracy, is it?
Thanks, Monika and Leila. So I'm Tracy Power. I'm the Social Impact Director for Rugby League World Cup 2021. So next year, at the end of next year, England will host the men's, women's and wheelchair Rugby League World Cups. So we're very excited to be welcoming 32 nations to England next year. And as part of the tournament, we are running a very large and varied social impact programme, looking at how we can use the tournament to make a positive impact on people's lives. So people in our local communities where we've got games playing, what can we do to help improve their lives, and not just in the physical activity form, so not just around getting people physically active and playing the sport, but looking at how we can improve their mental health, their community engagement, you know, their social interactions, and make them more confident and upskill local communities as well. As part of that, we have a big programme that's focused around mental health. So earlier this year, as a tournament, we launched a mental fitness charter, which is our commitment to promoting positive mental fitness across the tournament and across everything we do in the build up to the tournament. And as part of that, we're delivering a large community outreach programme across our rugby league clubs. So delivering mental fitness education and workshops to players, coaches and parents across the towns and cities where Rugby League World Cup games will take place. And that is all around trying to reduce the stigma associated with mental fitness and trying to encourage particularly teenage teenagers to talk more openly, and promoting the message that it's okay to talk, it's okay to not be okay, and looking at how they can look after themselves, how they can recognise signs and symptoms of poor mental health, and how they can support themselves and support others and support their teammates, and really building on that being a team, and they are a team, and it's just as important to look after their mental fitness as it is their physical fitness. And as well as doing that across our rugby league communities, that also extends to our internal team and our teammates, and our volunteer workforce that we'll have at tournament time. So a big focus for us is on how we make sure that our team, our central team, are mentally fit as well. We will be delivering quite a stressful tournament. We've got 61 games in 21 locations over a 5-week period. We will be a very small team, conscious that it's going to be quite a stressful time for people. So wanting to make sure that people are ready for that, are prepared for that, and can deal with that. And also just making sure that people can enjoy the journey. So over this next year, it's a really exciting time being involved in a major event. So just wanting to make sure that people have the opportunity to recognise that, and maybe don't get bogged down with the stress of running a major event. And I think COVID has just maybe accelerated some of the work that we were doing on that. So we were already planning to do work around mental fitness and supporting teammates and employees on being looking after their own well-being, and I think COVID's maybe just helped us to accelerate some of those and bring it to the forefront a bit more.
Thanks so much, Tracy. And Claire, I know we have two Claires. So Claire Parker from Britvic.
Hi, it's fantastic to be here. Thank you so much, Leila, and it's wonderful to meet all of you. So yeah, Claire Parker, I work for Britvic Soft Drinks, so hopefully you will be indulging in some of those lovely drinks, Robinsons, Tango, 7-Up, whilst you're all in lockdown. And I've been there for 2 years, so I'm the Senior Manager of D&I, which obviously has a huge bearing on mental health and wellbeing. And at Britvic, we pride ourselves on trying to create a culture of bringing your true authentic self to work, so be yourself. And with that obviously comes the encouragement of talking about who you really are and what makes you the person that you are. So mental health plays a huge part in that. So the culture that we're trying to bring and trying to create absolutely plays into the part, particularly around mental health and talking about mental health more openly, which is fantastic. We've got a great framework. So it's called My Life. It's focused around 4 different pillars, which all centre around into mental health. So My Joy, which is all around stress, anxiety, depression. You've got My Mojo, which is physical and nutrition and healthy eating. My Giving, so giving back to the community, charity work. And we also have My Money, which is obviously the finance element. So all of that making up My Life. So we've done an awful lot of work, but it's fair to say, I think, Tracy, you touched on it, it's hugely been accelerated due to the COVID piece. So we've now created calendars, we've got support mechanisms. I think, Monika, you talked about online yoga sessions. We've been doing Pilates, we've been doing mindfulness. So lots of fantastic activities. So we've tried to tackle it from 2 areas. One, the physical side, making sure people are equipped to work from home. So they have the chairs, they have the desks, they have all of the equipment they need to be successful, but then more so the emotional side. So we've really tried to play out the emotional side. And we've invested quite heavily on mental health first aiders. So we now have first aiders across the business who are out there educating, talking about it. I think, Tracy, you mentioned it, it's okay not to be okay, that whole philosophy of trying to encourage people to be a little bit more vulnerable and talk about how they're feeling. So we've started the journey, accelerated it hugely, and if I'm honest, still some way to go, and we're trying to make it much more part of the way that we work, so not something that we just get round to. I think sometimes well-being is something that you think, oh, I must make that a priority, but it often comes to the bottom of the list. So I think the urgency is actually, this cannot be a more important time to focus on it. And I think from a personal perspective, I think, Monika, you probably touched on it. I've got 2 children, so I've got 2 boys, 10 and 13, living in Leighton Buzzard. obviously lockdown is quite difficult, and especially when the children weren't at school. I pride myself on being quite a resilient person, but actually I didn't anticipate the impact it would have on my 10-year-old, if I'm honest. You know, he was showing huge physical signs of anxiety, you know, stuttering, spots on his face, which was really, really harrowing, to be honest. And I think I didn't anticipate the impact that would have. You know, I pride myself on myself being quite resilient, but when it's your child and you can't control it, it's quite difficult. So from a personal perspective, I think also talking to other parents about what they were going through and also sharing those experiences really, really helps. So I think talking is absolutely key to me. So it's an absolute privilege to be here and talking about it openly, and encouraging more people to talk about it.
Thanks so much, Claire, and for sharing those personal pieces as well. And I'd love to dive into those very shortly, actually. But last but never least, Katherine.
Hi, thanks, Layla. And I echo what everyone said in that I'm also very grateful and really feel really privileged to join you all this morning to talk about such an important topic. So I'm Katherine Robinson. I'm Senior Business Development Manager in Boots UK. And I'm also the Vice Chair of the Women of WBA UK Business Resource Group. And I think for me, WBA in the UK, it's not an easy task. We've got a varied workforce that spans offices, warehouses and stores, actually. So differing needs across all of those different locations. But as a business, we started to tackle mental health and wellbeing a few years ago with the introduction of the mental health first aiders. And I suppose, like the other organisations and like the other ladies have spoken about this morning, COVID just magnified that, I suppose, at the beginning of the year. And we've done some fantastic work since then in order to support our colleagues through this difficult time. And I think for me personally, what's been coming through quite apparently is the need for connection and the need for that open, authentic dialogue and that authentic leadership. And I think, as Tracy said, it being able to say it's okay not to be okay, and our leaders actually putting that out into the workforce and sharing that with the colleagues and almost showing their vulnerability definitely opens up the avenues for other people to start to feel like they can discuss mental health and well-being. And I think personally, I live on my own, so lockdown's been particularly hard. But I definitely think that we're all facing our own individual challenges throughout this, and I think it's having an understanding of everybody's individual challenges. And I know we've probably all seen the analogy that we're all in the same storm, but we're on different boats. And I think that's never more true than what we're facing into right now. And especially as we go into this second lockdown, it's keeping connected, it's keeping that open, honest dialogue with our colleagues. And I think some of the tools that WBA have provided us through this time is keeping us all connected and hopefully having a huge impact on the colleagues that we have.
So thank you all very much indeed for sharing, and you've all touched on some incredibly valuable points, in particular the acceleration of mental health and wellness and the challenges given COVID and given we're now heading into this second lockdown. And because I'm keen to make sure that we give as many actionable points to others, and we're going to try and release this lounge as soon as possible because we want it to benefit as many people as we possibly can. I think it'd be really nice just to talk a bit more around that stigma of mental health, and also perhaps some of the most successful initiatives that you've experienced during this lockdown period, because of course they've had to pivot given the current environment. Mind, the charity is calling this a mental health emergency, and really calling for many leaders and individuals to step up. Now, we talk about the stigma. I think there still is a stigma. Personally, for myself, I suffer with mental health, anxiety, depression. I still take antidepressants and I see a counsellor on a weekly basis. Going back 5-10 years, I never ever would have said that to anyone, because I would have been far too embarrassed to do so. And I think here in the UK, maybe less so in the States, where many people have life coaches and things like that. For me, that has been the biggest game changer for me, is having a counsellor, being able to speak out openly. And so I wonder, on that basis, whether there was anything more that you wanted to share, whether personally or professionally, in terms of stories. And also, when we talk about kind of best practice and you know, particularly successful initiatives, I wonder whether you might be able to share what you've seen as being the biggest changes. I know we'd initially looked at asking changes your organisation has implemented, but I think we've all touched on a number, which is wonderful. And so perhaps if we focus on those that we've seen that have been particularly successful, that could be most helpful for those that are tuning in and listening to this session today. So Claire, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay. Claire from Ipsos.
Okay, yeah, Claire from Ipsos, very good. So I would say that the biggest impact, the biggest thing that we have done from a mental health perspective, which was as a result of signing up to the Time to Change pledge. So that helped us focus and think about what we wanted to do. But the biggest thing that we have done, which only costs people's time, is talk about it and share stories with our employees and personal experiences from a range of different employees, from board level, you know, down to more junior colleagues. And we've done that over, we do that through employee panels. Basically pre-pandemic, we'd have lunchtime sessions focusing on a particular topic area linked to mental health and well-being, and we'd have a panel of people, a balanced panel from a seniority perspective, but also from a gender perspective, and an ethnicity perspective, and we would ask people to share their stories, and then there'd be a Q&A. So I participated in one of those, the first one, as a panel member. So I was a board member sharing my experiences, which I've alluded to earlier. And then I had colleagues alongside me who would share their stories. Cost very little. We recorded it. It's available now on our intranet. People can access it. So even new recruits to the organisation can see that. And then what we have done is we've taken that concept and delivered similar sessions through pandemic. So initially we had one in terms of people's during the first lockdown, so what people were doing, because it was all new, wasn't it? So sharing some stories, you know, what was working for people, what wasn't working for people. And then we've done one more recently on the focus of resilience, because actually that's how we're evolving our mental health and well-being strategy now, is about personal resilience and how we can help people, can give people the tools and techniques to spot the triggers and take action before things get too much, become too overwhelming, and then people can't see the wood for the trees. So that concept of employee panels, you know, it was face-to-face pre-pandemic. First one was probably 2 years ago. Now everything's online. We get huge take-up. So we get huge take-up in these panels. People, you know, hundreds of employees tune in and listen, and also we record them so people can listen to them. So that's the biggest thing for me that's had an impact, and we will continue to do those panel discussions, making sure that we've got a broad level of representation, particularly representation at a senior level. And then my other observation actually is that I do feel that one of the positives, do think it's a positive that's come out of this, is people are talking about mental health, and they are more freely opening up. And I think that's a positive thing, because we can then work with people to help them help themselves.
Absolutely. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Let's keep doing that, and you know, being proactive as opposed to reactive. If it's to be proven, now is absolutely the time. Monika.
Thank you so much, Leila. And once again, I just want to say that, you know, what we're doing today is exactly what everybody should be doing. We're talking about it, we're sharing personal experiences. And Leila, I'm like yourself, you know, a while back, I also deal with some personal stories, and my daughter is suffering from quite a severe anxiety where that manifests itself in, you know, physical symptoms, and, you know, it's taking a strain on me, it's taking a strain on her. And, you know, there's a lot of talk and a lot of meditation, and, you know, the resources that the company provides, I use them myself because they proving helpful to balance that kind of, you know, stress, that that anxiety that is part of our daily lives at the moment. And you've been talking a lot about stigma. Absolutely, like we used to not talk about it. This was something to be ashamed of, and that's why I think it's the company. You know, this is an opportunity for companies really to showcase that we can only move forward by taking a step back and reflecting on ourselves and sharing those stories. And we, in Verizon Media, we have sizzle videos that are produced by senior leadership where they talk about this, where they talk about personal examples, where they talk about their friends and family going through difficult times. And that helps people to open up, and that helps people to reach out when they need help. So this is absolutely key. And again, in Verizon Media as well, everything's been accelerated because of the pandemic, because of COVID. And this is a silver lining. And this is helping us, and this is going to make change possible in the future as well. And I was talking about yoga and Pilates, and Claire, you've mentioned a number of initiatives, but there is mindfulness speaker series. We have meditation apps available to employees. We have live meditation sessions, introduction to different workshops, sessions being held at lunch times. So there's a lot of that to make sure that it's as available as possible during, before, and after hours. And that's absolutely fantastic. But what I would love to mention as well today is that we need to give ourselves some credit, and we need to be aware where we are right now and where we've made so far. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a democracy crisis, healthcare crisis, economic crisis, and all that is making a different impact on different people. We have people living alone. We have people struggling with, you know, kids going to school and different and homeschooling. I also found it so challenging, and I think it nearly broke me. I definitely cannot be a teacher, but this was tough, you know, and accepting and talking about it, I think, is so important. In Verizon Media, our CEO, Guru Gaurapan, he's an executive sponsor of mental health initiatives. Verizon as a company, we focus on employees, on customers, on society and our stakeholders. And my manager just recently told me when I asked him a question, you know, how do we deal with it? What do we do? And he mentioned employees are our number one stakeholder, and we need to make sure that we put that oxygen mask on first, so that we can support everybody else, so that we can support community, stakeholders, and make sure that we keep going as a business. We need to be well. So we need to spend time on ourselves. We need to reflect on what's working, what's not working, and take time off and take our breaks when we recognize that we need those breaks. So there's just so much to talk about it, and it's such an important topic, but I'm glad that we're talking about it. And I'm glad because in a way, COVID helped us realize that these issues have always been there. They've always been present, but because it's impacting so many of us at the moment, companies and individuals decided to take, you know, next steps and make change.
Monika, thanks so much for sharing. And, you know, exec sponsorship is so critical. Tracy, would be great to hear from you next.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier around trying to reduce the stigma, I think that is a big focus and a big challenge that we all need to work on. And what we found through some of the research we're doing with some of our community outreach work is that young people, and men in particular, prefer to receive messaging around their mental health from celebrities or sports stars and people that they, I suppose, that they look up to and role models. And what we're doing with our community outreach work is delivering those key messages via sports stars. So we're using professional or former professional players, former international rugby league players, to go out and talk to the young people and talk to men and talk around their stories. You know, I think having someone who they respect, who's represented their country, competed at the highest level in their sport, standing in front of them and saying, actually, yeah, I achieved a lot, that, you know, I had some real struggles and this was my story and this was my journey and this is how I overcame it, I think is something really important, and I think is helping to reduce that stigma and just helping people to view mental health in a different way. And I think there's a lot we can learn from that in business as well. So bringing that same sort of principle into business, in having high profile people, whether that is sports stars, celebrities, role models from the world of you know, leadership, talking around their challenges, their journey, their story, and showing that, you know, they still, you can still achieve, you can still be successful, and just sharing that, I think, is just a different way of delivering that message. And I think it's really key in helping to reduce the stigma, is not just the messages we're delivering, but how we're delivering those. And Claire, I really liked your idea around, or what you're doing around the employee panels, and having that, you know, people from every level of the business and, you know, from the board as well, talking around their stories and sharing their experiences. And I think that's something we can all learn from and implement across organisations, just to help, I suppose, people feel more comfortable to talk about it, because leaders in the business are talking about it too.
I'm a bit jealous of your rugby stars though, Tracy.
Yeah.
More employees dialing in if I had some rugby stars.
Yeah, and you know, they are fantastic. It's been really really great to see. We've got around 13 of them trained up now, and you know, some of them are, you know, they're big blokes. They've, you know, competed at the highest level, competed in World Cups, and they stand in front of a room of, you know, 20, 12-year-olds, and they are so nervous, and because it means so much to them. But, you know, hearing their stories and things, and we're, you know, we're starting to see it making a real difference. And we've had them in as well, delivering a session for our team. So they've done a session for our team as well around, you know, building resilience, which is important for us. So I think there's just a lot we can learn from maybe some of the work that's going on in sport, and encouraging sort of business leaders to be more open and talking about it more. And we've got a strap line with the program that we're doing to try and again encourage young people, which is around, so the strap line is talk more, play better. So we're trying to relate it to what's important to those people, and what's important to our young players is that they want to be the best rugby league player they can be. So relating it to that around, actually, in order to be the best you can be, you need to talk more, because you need to be mentally strong as well as physically fit. And I think we need to, whether there's a way we can, you know, use that within organizations as well, around, you know, in order to be the best version of yourself and to be the best that you can be, you need to, you know, you need to talk more. It's not just around working harder, it's around, you know, talking more and being in the best place that you can be mentally as well as physically.
I'm not sure if you're all thinking the same thing as me, and that is that we should do round 2 of the Dial Lounge with mental health and wellness, and invite some of these rugby players to come and talk about mental health and resilience and inspire us even more. So thank you, Tracy. Claire,
yeah,
Claire from Britvic.
Great, thank you, Layla. It's actually following on from Tracy, to be honest, in terms of role modelling. I think the biggest impact that we've had at Britvic is as part of our framework, so our My Life framework, we recruited some volunteers. We call them Wellbeing warriors, over 40 of them across the whole business. And these are people who are really passionate, enthusiastic, energised, and really want to make a difference with wellbeing across the business, which is just fantastic. And what they did is they developed a calendar. So each month they would focus on a particular topic, and very similar to, as Claire said, you know, each month we would focus on something particular. So we did mindfulness in May. June we did stuff around hydration. July we did stuff around work-life balance. August we actually did summertime support, so we did actually stuff for parents. So we did things like making slime from some of our factories, some STEM experiments. So a tour of the factories just for children whilst they weren't at school, to help with the parents. And then September, we did some stuff around positive mindset. October, we did things around new ways of working. So both from a technology perspective, but also what is it like now to get in that emotional state of working from home and working slightly differently. November, we're currently doing quite a lot on finance, because we appreciate that actually that there are employees that we have that, you know, have maybe spouses or partners or family members that are in real financial difficulty. So providing lots of guidance and support around the financial situation for them. And then December, we're going to be focusing on the My Giving piece. So very much volunteering, charity work with the homeless, food banks, all of that type of stuff. So they've really been driving that across the business, which has had a huge impact, because they're really role modeling some of that behaviour in terms of mental health. And I think they've taken it from a very holistic perspective. So really making small tweaks to certain things that have an impact on your mental health. So, you know, capturing all those different things in terms of healthy eating, physical, financial, all of those elements really then have an impact. And just making some of those small changes has really made a difference. I think as well, what we've also offered our employees is we give all our employees 3 days paid every year, 2 days for My Giving, which is volunteering, giving back, but we also give them 1 day for My Joy, which is your wellbeing day. And you can use that day for whatever you feel is your well-being. So I was very fortunate. I was able to use mine on Monday. I got in before lockdown and I managed to go for a fantastic back massage and some lunch with my husband. So my Joy day was fantastic. But we are encouraging people, even though in lockdown, you know, take your My Joy day to spend some time, maybe reading, painting, baking, whatever it is that means that you'll have that investment in your own well-being. And I think that's been really well received. Lots of employees saying, actually, I feel like you care. I feel like Britvic are really making an effort to make sure that we're looking after our own well-being. And then the other piece is obviously the mental health first aiders. We've made a huge investment. We've now got 15 trained. We've got another 15 going through training this month. And that community are already working on a whole roadmap of activities that they can start to roll out across the business. And we're also looking, I think, Claire, you mentioned it at the Time to Change pledge. So we're looking at that and how that can help us move forward. But I think, if I'm honest, it's the role modelling. It's the wellbeing warriors that have made a huge difference in our business, because you've got people who are beavering away across the whole business. And I think what's exciting is often wellbeing, it's seen that it has to come from HR. And actually these wellbeing warriors are out in the business. They're not part of HR. Actually, they're driving initiatives, and they're the ones that are coming up with some great ideas in order to support people. And as part of the calendar, what they also did is they had drop-in sessions. So every month they would have an opportunity, just an open drop-in session where anybody could join and just talk about how they were feeling. And I think one of the interesting things that came out of some of those drop-in sessions was we had quite a few people who were quite sceptical about mental health. Really? Anxiety? Does it really exist? Are you sure? And actually it was people that had experienced it and experienced more the physical side of, you know, the sweating, the palpitations, and, you know, the feeling of being anxious and not realising how they were feeling. So I think it was interesting. We've now got wellbeing warriors who previously were sceptical. So then sharing their stories and talking about them going through that situation has been really powerful. So yeah, Wellbeing Warriors has been our unlock.
Claire, I love that. We may have to pinch that with pride, because I think the name of this lounge, Wellbeing Warriors, of which all of you are, is just fabulous. I love that we've all kind of talked about role models as well. I often call them real models. I think role models, real models, they exist in everyday life. Katherine, your thoughts?
Yeah, so similar to what Claire said, I think what's worked really well for us has been listening sessions. So we've held a number of different listening sessions across our business resource groups. And I think the fact that they come from the business resource groups makes them really true and authentic, as opposed to, as Claire was mentioning, coming from HR. Sometimes it feels a little bit more forced than when it comes more naturally through our business resource groups. And they've been held with senior leaders across the business. And we've had some our members really sharing openly and honestly. And I think that's opened up across the business for that. The release of the stigmatism that Tracy spoke about earlier, and it's almost normalising those conversations a little bit more. And you can see that coming into I go into meetings now, and the conversations that you have the start of the meeting that I have now compared to, I suppose, when we were first heading into lockdown feels completely different. You will start with, how's everyone feeling? How was last night? What's everyone's thoughts of today? Anything challenging or worrying everyone, as opposed to just going straight into the, right, guys, we've got this agenda item that we need to start working through it. And it feels like things are becoming a little bit more normalised for people to be really open and honest with their feelings. And I think that's made such a huge difference across the organisation. And I think some of the things that we've been doing as well is really helping to support our leaders, because if we're asking people to be open and honest, we need to make sure that our leaders can support those individuals when they go into them and when they're saying, do you know what, I'm not okay and I need some support. So we need to feel that our leaders are in the best place to then support those colleagues in that instance. So we've been doing a lot around leader support guides in that instance, and helping. And we've got the mental health first aiders in place as well as an organisation, and we've had those for over a year now, both in the support office and down in the field and in our stores as well. And they've been making a huge difference. We've also launched a Wellbeing hub that's got lots of different tools and techniques for people to pull on as and when they need it. I'm not sure if anyone else feels on the call, but I can remember when we first went into lockdown, there was tips and hints everywhere. Everyone online was sharing hints and tips, and I think it became quite overwhelming. So the launch of the Wellbeing hub has been absolutely fantastic, because people can then pull on the information that they need as and when they want it. We've done various different wellbeing, mindfulness webinars, which have been fantastic. We've had sleep sessions with sleep doctors that we've pulled on from across the organisation as well. And we've also launched 5 ways to wellbeing, that's around connecting, be active, take notice, keep learning, and also give back. Underpinned actually by wellbeing action plans. So if people need them, there's a wellbeing action plan that they can put in place. And if they don't feel like they can have that real open, honest dialogue with their line manager, there's that's available that they can then go and use to have a conversation. And there's things in there where they can share about, this is what I need from you, this is the support that I like. Or the line manager could ask them, are there any triggers that I need to be aware of? Or what would warning signs look like when I feel that you're not in a great place? So those leaders can really support those individuals through what is an uncertain and challenging time at the moment. So yeah, we've got lots of things in place. We've also done similar things around financial wellbeing support as well, because we know that we've got colleagues that may be impacted from a financial perspective, maybe personally or partners or family and friends. And then we've also got the colleague health services as well that are available for them if they choose to use that as well.
I think on the wellness or wellbeing plans that you talked about there, Kat, I think they're a really good idea. And I think if anyone's not seen them, Mind have got a wellness action plan template. It's really simple to use, and a guide for employers and for managers and employees on how to fill those out and how to use them. And that's all sort of free for people to access, which might be a good starting point if people are looking to implement something.
Yeah, definitely. See, I think they just support those colleagues who may not feel like they can go and have that conversation initially. It's just almost a tool that can almost trigger that conversation with their leaders.
I think the leadership piece is particularly relevant, making sure leaders have that support. I think, you know, specifically for leaders who are in senior positions like all of you are, I hear from our network there is more feelings of guilt and more feelings of you know, concern over not showing their not showing their vulnerability, but trying so much to be there for their teams and for other individuals that they almost neglect themselves. And I think, you know, with us all here, we're all you know, well versed within diversity, inclusion, belonging, and you know, HR and the people business. You know, it's so easy to you know, always give that advice because you care about others, and all of you care about teams and people. And sometimes it results in you almost putting yourself last. It's something that I've been hearing more and more and more. And so, Kat, the point there on actually leaders specifically having that additional time to be able to best deal with things, to be able to support their teams, because the higher up they go, the more individuals they are then supporting, the lonelier a place it can be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the leader support guides that we've created and the training that's gone around it has been hugely beneficial. And I think it does make you, I've been more aware of, I need to take time out sometimes just to, like you said, you're supporting your teams and making sure that you're supporting your organisation and the people that are around you. You've got to be a little bit selfish sometimes to take that time back and to truly look after yourself, because I think you can't look after yourself if you can't look after other people if you're not looking after yourself, if you're not in that great space. So I've, as an individual, have definitely made sure that I'm taking full advantage of the tools that we've got available personally, so I can support my team in a better way.
I really liked the my joy piece as well, because I think that would really alleviate the guilt side, because you're being given those days to do whatever you wish. So Claire, I thought that was fantastic, and you know, it's great as well because it's bespoke. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. It's something where each and everyone has their own desires, their own things they enjoy, and it's that time to do something for yourself. And you know, statistics prove that those that spend time volunteering, you know, dedicating time for other things outside of work are far more productive. So it makes absolute business sense. Now, conscious of timing, and do have another couple of questions to ask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of roll them into one, because we've all touched on so many glorious, rich, useful tools and kind of guidance, advice, and things like that. Kat, I know you said it was a bit overwhelming with top tips, and I was planning on asking you some of your top tips, but I will still do that. I will say, look, you know, as a final, you know, kind of parting thought to those who are listening, would you have any real crucial tips and best practice that you would want to share in terms of this agenda? And you know, I think it's an important question to ask, whether it be personally, whether it be professionally. You know, we're all experiencing, you've all alluded to it, these ever more blurred lines of personal, business, you know, the whole job lot rolls into one almost. And so any tips and guidance on best practice or advice when it comes to mental health and wellness, and or balancing out that work-life situation, because it's all in one sphere at the moment, isn't it? Claire?
I think I've probably got three things. One from a personal perspective in terms of a top tip, and then a couple of things as leaders in the organisation to think about from a wellbeing perspective. So the first thing I think is about routine and rhythm, and as our working situations evolve and change, taking the time to evaluate your working routine and your rhythm, and creating a way of working that works for you, building in all of the stuff around getting outside and doing some exercise and taking breaks and all of that kind of stuff. But only individuals can do that, I think. Certainly in the organisation that I work in, it's in the individuals manage their own workload, so they have permission, if you like, to to create that. So, you know, as going into lockdown 2, I took the opportunity to kind of evaluate how I wanted to work for the next month, and say up to Christmas. And I've made a few tweaks and changes, which I feel quite comfortable about and quite excited about doing. And then some of the things that I guess are on my watch list now as we evolve our wellbeing strategy. And I haven't necessarily got the answers, but it is that bit about making it inclusive. And Tracy, actually, in particular, your comments about using your rugby players as role models to talk to the young people. Actually, what troubles me is that I often get the same employees engaging with the stuff that we do. So the worried well, if you like, the people that are listening and probably taking action and hearing what we've got to say. But I do know that there's a proportion of employees that aren't engaged in our stuff yet. And how do I deliver? What do I need to do as the HR director to make our wellbeing offer more inclusive? What haven't I necessarily done? Because there is a bunch of people that haven't yet connected, and they might be the people that need help. So that bit is on my watch list, and I haven't got the answer to that yet. And then the other bit is linked to some of the comments that Kat made around leadership and support for leaders. But actually, I'm trying to look at it in a slightly different way, because I feel that some of my leaders in my organisation are taking on too much. They are taking too much responsibility for the people that they line manage on our, and the teams that they lead. How do I help them have better conversations with their people to help people help themselves? Because I think if people can help, if we can catch stuff early and help people help themselves, then things don't get so overwhelming for people that then they can't cope and they can't make decisions and they can't see the wood through the trees. So that's another thing that I'm very mindful of, because the more our leaders take on stuff, then the less able they are to look after themselves. And actually it's also not helpful to for the individuals as well. So those are two things that we are working on as we evolve our strategy in the future.
Thanks for sharing, Claire. And anyone that wants to comment or give any thoughts back to Claire, please do so. But some really interesting and valid points there, Claire. It reminds me of, I used to volunteer for the Samaritans for about 3 years, and that was very much the ethos that we had there. It was, you're there to listen as an impartial voice, but you're not there to actually tell someone not to do something. The ethos was you listen and they would pull themselves out of that hole, if that makes sense. It's like the analogy of feeding teaching a man how to fish kind of scenario. So I think it's a really interesting point, one of which hopefully we can all consider. But anyone that has any thoughts for Claire as we're going around would be fantastic. So Monika, to you.
Thank you, Leila. And yes, Claire, I'm just going to echo probably what you said already. I do think that, our future encompasses investments in mental health and promotion of taking care after ourselves. And look, the pandemic has set off a wave of worsening mental health issues, and we really need to take notice of that. There is worry, there is fear, there is different feelings that are part of our daily routines at the moment. And I think employers, so there's two tips that I would give, is one from an employer's perspective and a second one from personal perspective. I think employers will really need to embrace and encourage self-care and create an inclusive environment where people who are seeking treatment, who are maybe, recovering are being celebrated, and that's okay. And it's okay not to be okay, which is what you've said already. And we need to encourage that social connectivity, allow people to talk to each other, and seek help and support, and take time off. And as an organization, you know, we have responsibility to listen, acknowledge, and share, and then create those platforms where people can tune in, listen in their own time as well. So not just kind of, you know, logging into a live yoga classes, but also be able to seek support after hours. Secondly, from a personal perspective, I think it's important to be kind to yourself, give yourself grace. We're not always going to be super productive, and days will be different, and it's okay not to be productive this week because I'm not feeling okay, and bounce back next week, and be able to talk to people around you and express that. So just be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, and embrace, and you know, and just accept that we're not okay all the time.
Wise words. Thanks, Monika. Tracy.
Yeah, I think I'm just picking up on Claire's point around how do we engage those that are not already engaged. I think that's a big challenge for all of us moving forward. And I think something that might be worth reviewing is just what the terminology and language that we use when we're delivering these sessions, and you know, doing all this hard work, and trying to identify what resonates with the target group that you're trying to reach. And we've did a lot of research on that around the terminology and language that we use and what would resonate with our target groups. And we talk a lot more around mental fitness, so we refer to it as mental fitness rather than mental health, because that leads us to getting a better engagement rate from the people that we're trying to target within our local community. So I think that's just sort of one tip that might be useful for people, that if we're not getting the engagement, maybe looking at sort of the terminology and language, and whether that's putting people off or leading to people thinking that it's not for them from an engagement point of view. I think in terms of best practice, I think one of the best things that we've done as an organisation is introduced Wellness Wednesdays. So we recognise that teammates were getting a bit of Teams fatigue and Zoom fatigue, and you know, I think we're all finding that you're on a screen far more now than we ever were. So we designated Wednesday afternoons as our Wellness Wednesday, and encourage, we have no internal meetings on a Wednesday afternoon, and we encourage all teammates to not arrange external meetings and to use Wednesday afternoons in a way that they want to use it to improve themselves and to help themselves. So we encourage people to use Wednesday afternoons to go outside and get some exercise, get some fresh air, to meet up with other teammates when they can. And you know, I've been on and met a few teammates. We've been for socially distanced walks just to get out and just catch up, not necessarily work related, but just to see other people, you know, to meet for coffee, to do some learning, so to do some, you know, some online learning and CPD, or just spend time with family. And we found that that's worked really well across the organisation. And we just have that flexibility that if Wednesday afternoons is not the right time for you to do that, actually you can schedule that in whenever in your week that you need to. But we've just made that commitment as an organisation that there will be no internal meetings on a Wednesday afternoon, to give people to allow people to so that they feel that they can take that time off, and they don't feel pressured to be in meetings. And then I think the other one was just around recognition, particularly from leaders within the organisation, and recognition of the work that everybody is doing, and you know, how people are managing during this time. You know, recently we all received handwritten thank you notes from the chair of our board, thanking us all. They were personalised, handwritten, thanking us for our work during this time. And I think a little bit of recognition can go a long way in just helping to, I suppose, keep morale up, make people feel valued, and that, you know, when you are maybe having a tough day or feeling a bit isolated, you know, it does make you realise that the work that you're doing is recognised, people are aware of it, and that it's worthwhile.
I'm hearing a lot of pieces around personalisation, being bespoke. It's not one size that fits all. And I think that's an absolute theme of today's session. It's different things for different people. I'm a massive fan of handwritten notes. I love that. You know, I think that'll definitely be one of the key action points to take away from today. Claire from Britvic.
Yeah, thank you. Tracy, I love Wellness Wednesday. I'm in love with it. I might have to pinch that. It's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And I completely understand when you talk about language. Interesting enough, we ran 2 sessions. One was, and we called it mindfulness, and we called the other one meditation. And if I'm honest, we had the biggest uptake because of what we called it, because it was all around mindfulness and meditation. And actually, the people that joined the conversation, I mean, the session went completely different to how we were expecting. It was actually people talking about mental health and talking about how they were feeling and the struggles and stuff. So I think just the language had that engagement for people wanting to join, and the session went completely different to how we were expecting. So I think language is definitely a key. So I completely resonate with what you said, Tracy. I think for me, there's probably 2 key things, one personal and one work. The first one with the work perspective, I think for me, it's about prioritising. I think if we as businesses are going to not only survive but thrive, we absolutely have to prioritise this. It cannot be something that we get around to doing when we have some spare time. It has to be built into everything that we do every single day. And I think, Layla, you touched on it in terms of the guilt. There's a huge amount of guilt of people thinking, oh, well, I don't want to take that time to invest in myself and be a little bit selfish. But actually, we have to do that, and we have to encourage that. And that comes with role modelling. So I think role modelling from our leaders to prioritise that this is really important. This has to be part of a leader's responsibility to role model what good well-being looks like. Because I think there's an element of feeling like you need permission, which is why the My Joy Day, I think, has been so successful, because actually it is permission. We're saying to people, please take the time, please invest in yourself. And I think, you know, when we see leaders doing that, automatically there's an element of, okay, now I can see them doing it. I feel like I've got permission to invest in myself and be a little bit selfish. So I think two things there. One, prioritise it, make it part of everyday activities, and the second piece is role modelling. And I think from a personal perspective, something that I picked up on, probably towards the earlier days of lockdown, when again, probably in line with Monika, we had the children at home, and I felt like I was really struggling to understand what my role was. I was a teacher, I was a cook, I was a cleaner, I was a wife, I was a mother, and then I also had my day job. So I really struggled to work out what was priority, what do I need to focus on, what's got to drop before I drop. And actually what I did is I created the power of 3. And the power of 3 was, I'm going to choose 3 things that I will absolutely focus. I'm not going to make this huge big list that I failed every day to deliver on, but I'm going to focus on the power of 3, and I'm going to do those 3 things, and I'm going to do them really well. But what I made sure is, out of those 3 things, one was personal. One was about me, and it might be me and my family. It might be, me and my kids going for a nice walk, or whatever it was. But one of them would be for me. And actually, I've continued with that power of 3. So every morning I'll get up and I'll think, right, okay, what are the 3 things that I'm going to achieve today? And actually, by the end of the day, sometimes I'm on 4 or 5. And I'm thinking, yes, fantastic, great, real progress. Not only have I done 3, I've managed to do 5. Whereas previously, I had this huge big list of stuff that I needed to do. And every day, the feeling of failure and the feeling that you actually weren't achieving was really difficult. And I completely resonate with just being a bit kinder to yourself. And I think that power of 3 has made me be a lot kinder to myself. I can't do everything, absolutely, but what I can do is I can do 3 things really well. So for me, from a personal perspective, the power of 3 has been really powerful.
Super.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, Claire. I'm just going to hijack that idea and implement it to my daily routine as well. And you're right, it's like the strain on us has been huge. And you've been just saying, and I've been thinking the same thing. You've been a cook, you've been a mom, you've been a wife, a teacher. We can't do all these things and do them well. So I love the power of it, and I'm going to do the same. Thank you especially for this personal advice.
So much pinching with pride. This is what we want. This is fantastic, and I'm sure everyone who is listening to this on demand is thinking, oh, the to-do list that gets longer every day. Sometimes the simple things are the best ones, aren't they? And last but not least, again, Katherine.
Thank you, Layla. So I think for me, it's a journey, isn't it? We're on a journey. We've got uncertain times ahead of us, and I think we just need to focus and keep learning and keep adapting. We can't look too far out because we don't know what that will be. And I think as an organisation, keep implementing things that we know to be true today, and to take those learnings for what is working and what isn't working is definitely something that we're doing. And like I said earlier, the Wellbeing Hub has been fantastic for us, and it's a tool for people to take. So it's that personalised element that you were speaking about earlier, for people to take what they want to take from that, join the webinars that they want to join, but making sure that it's very personal to them and that they've got those options available to them. I think personally, some of the tips that I've got is keep connected. Definitely keep connected. And we often fall into the trap of sending emails all the time, responding to people via emails, and actually what we're losing is that almost the face-to-face or the talk that you get around those emails from people. So I've definitely been an advocate and encourage everybody who I work with is actually don't always send that email. Pick up the phone and have that conversation. You might be the only person that person's spoken to today, and that could make a big impact to them. And keep connected. I put in personally some 15-minute check-ins with my team in the morning. Wasn't work related. It was to talk about anything that we would usually talk about, making coffee or the journey that we'd usually walk into the office together, just so that we're not just going straight into work and you feel that you've not been able to have that non-work conversation with somebody. And Claire, you touched on it earlier around routine. I definitely see that routine is really important. So getting up, getting dressed. I also imitate the drive to the office. So there was some great pieces of insights and research that came out of the first lockdown that was around people miss. And I don't think I'd ever say I'd miss the commute to the office and the commute home, which was over an hour every day. But actually, it set you up for the day, and it helps you to decompose from the day and start to understand, prep for the evening, and switch off from work. And people started to really miss that. So I don't drive it for an hour in the morning just round the block, but what I do is I don't switch my laptop on as soon as I get downstairs. I have a coffee, I have my breakfast, and I listen to the radio, for even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, so I can prep for the day. And at the end of the day, I switch my laptop off, I put it away, and it's out of sight then. Not everybody, unfortunately, has got a study. I'm sat in my kitchen as we're speaking. So I make sure that my laptop goes away and it's out of sight. And then I do exercise. I'll go for a run, or I'll go for a quick walk around the block, so I can switch off from the day, and then I can enjoy my evening ahead. And I know that that's really helped me, and people that I've spoken to about who've also implemented something similar, it makes a huge difference to them as well.
Yeah, I go for a walk, Kat, because I used to get the train to work. So in the mornings now, I go around. I live just behind a museum, so I go and walk around the museum garden in the morning for 20 minutes. Because otherwise I was getting like 0 steps. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it definitely makes a huge difference.
Well, thank you all so much. The time flew by. If there's some barking, somehow the dogs escaped back into the room. It's the benefits of home working. I think she knows when the Zoom camera's on. By way of summary from today, and oh my goodness, there have been so many nuggets of wisdom here. I will do my best to summarize. And for anyone who is listening, don't worry, we'll be putting all of the key learning points into the show notes at the end of today's show, so you can go and check in there if you've missed anything. There'll be plenty of of resources. We are happy as well to connect you up with any of the inspirational ladies who have been on today's show. I must say thank you, each and every one of you, well-being warriors, which I'm pinching with pride, which is what you all are, for being courageous and putting your heads above the parapet. You're doing fantastic, fantastic jobs at keeping the agenda up, pushing on. I can hear there's so many different things that you're all talking about, from resilience, being proactive, not reactive, the executive sponsorship piece being so incredibly important, trying our best not to feel that guilt. It is natural, especially those who are in D&I, HR professions, considering everyone else before ourselves. It is fine to be selfish and take time for yourselves. I think we covered some great stuff as well around stigma. I think this in and to itself, organisations hearing from their leaders talking out about this, it gives that permission, in inverted commas. Well, if leaders are doing it, then it is okay to do it ourselves. We as leaders have that responsibility, and that is on our shoulders to make sure that we make this a strategic priority. Mental health and wellness is just as important as physical wellness. Two are so incredibly intertwined. So I'll thank you all very, very much indeed. Again, all of the key learning points will go into the end of today's show notes. There's been far too many here for me to mention, which I can only presume is a very, very good thing. You can visit us at www.dialglobal.org. Make sure you connect up with the ladies from today. We'll put all of their details in there, but most importantly, don't be a stranger. Don't stay silent if you are feeling in need. Make sure you go and talk to someone and tell someone. So thank you again, all of you, and I hope you have fabulous weekends.